If you're enjoying the Health Geeks Book Club podcast, we'd appreciate if you hit the subscribe button, leave a like, rating, or review, whichever your preferred podcatcher platform allows.
This episode is sponsored by Well Balanced Nutrition and 360 Health.
Welcome to the Health Geeks Book Club podcast. Listen in as Kristen Norton and Eleanor Russell review all those great health and wellness books you've been wanting to read or you have read and want to talk about. Here's Kristen and Eleanor.
Oh, hello. This is the Health Geeks Book Club podcast, and Kristen Norton and I are here in the what media
This
are we in?
is the such and such such and such media studios at Liberty Plaza.
In Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And today, Kristen, you want to say hello?
Hello, hello.
And you want to introduce your guests?
So
Our guests, they're my guests too.
Our guests are back. We have the dietitians of Well Balanced Nutrition here. We have Lucy, Bella, and myself, and Eleanor. We're all going to talk.
Does Lucy have a last name, and does Bella have a last name?
Go ahead.
No.
Reintroduce yourselves.
Yeah.
Hey again, it's Lucy Hayhurst with Well Balanced Nutrition.
And this is Bella Swysicki, also with Well Balanced Nutrition.
And that's why I don't.
Thank you all.
Mm-hmm.
We appreciate that.
I knew it was me. Okay.
Yeah, Kristen and I are having so much fun because usually it's Tim and the two of us, and occasionally
And I'm no fun.
Oh no, you're lots of fun. And then we occasionally have an author with us to talk about our books. But we're here in, as we said, Winston-Salem, North Carolina. But we have Bella over in near Raleigh, North Carolina, and Lucy is down in Columbia, South Carolina today. So we're just pulling people in from all over the place to have a talk about Slaying the Supplement Myths by Dr. Steve Chaney, The Truth Behind the Hype. And we've mentioned that Dr. Chaney is an award-winning professor who taught human metabolism and nutrition to medical students at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill for 40 years, and he is an internationally recognized scientist who has published over 100 research studies and reviews in peer-reviewed scientific journals. He is also the author of Slaying the Food Myths, but he also was a cancer therapeutic research person and actually came up with a cancer drug that worked. And so the amount of time invested in that kind of exploration is massive. So he's been very successful and then speaks from his science-oriented perspective, trying to convey to the general public some ideas he has about these two topics. And so you guys, our guests and Kristen, have expertise in nutrition and dietetics. And so I think your perspective on his ideas can be a balance and kind of refine this a little bit for the general folks out here in the world.
You could almost say they're well balanced.
Yes, let's do that. Well balanced.
I like it.
So I'm going to throw a question out here, just, what do we call it? Disclaimers. I work with a company that sells supplements. I use supplements. What about you guys? What is your attitude towards supplementation?
I use supplements, and you may have heard on another podcast that I feel like in dietetics, in the education of dietetic students, there's only a brief class or time that we spend talking about supplements, and part of it is, be careful because these aren't really regulated products, that food should come first. And that there are certain times when supplements are important or certain nutrients need to be incorporated or recommended.
And that's a little different. I was a medical educator with the on the MD side and the physician assistant side, and frequently the nutrition content was a couple of lectures and maybe more in their 5-year curriculum. And then the test questions on their certification exams did not include that content. So a student would find out that it's nice to know, but it's not what I have to know to get out of here to be able to practice medicine, and I'll pick that up later. And whether or not they ever pick that up is a good question. We hope they do. We hope that we've made a case that they need to know this. But I am an advocate for team practice for general health and wellness. And so including you guys on the team for any patient seems to me to be a really good idea because you have more skills in counseling, perhaps, and behavior change than those. But Bella and Lucy, what's your take just at the high level about supplementation?
I think quality matters. I think supplements are great, especially if needed. If there's certain things that you cannot get or you need more of, because everyone's needs are different. I think there's no problem with them. I use supplements when I need to. It's just the quality. I think what gets lost on people is there's so many different kinds of active forms of vitamins or minerals in their supplement, and they need to make sure that they're getting the right strain or the right kind that's been scientifically researched and is proven to actually work, and then make sure that it's coming from a quality brand where there's no BS in it, and what you read on the label is actually what you get.
Yes, and finding that is a part of what we're trying to learn how to do better at Well Balanced Nutrition. I will say I did not get a good education in my studies, and so now I'm really trying to catch up a bit and learn more about what supplements to recommend, what brands are trusted, and we actually have a really good program that we can make some targeted good recommendations for our clients that feels a lot better now than it did 5 years ago. So I'm just continuing to grow in my own learning of what's good to recommend and when to incorporate supplements.
Ella, you're closer out of school. Do you feel like you got education on supplements?
I will never forget one of these videos that I watched where it made me think that supplements were like the spawn of Satan, because all these people were dying and stuff like that. And when there's issues like when they were putting caffeine, especially like the weight loss supplements, those can be dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. But really, is like vitamin D probably going to kill you? I really hope not. That's less likely. But I think there's still a severe lack in education. I think supplements feel daunting to me because there isn't a lot of like great resources. But when I did my medicine program, they spoke a little bit more about it, which I was thankful for, but it's a beast.
You would really like this book then, because he speaks into this, he gives you the evidence and really teases it apart as to the dangerous ones, maybe the helpful ones, and then who actually needs them, which is a good conversation. But I know a lot of medical doctors will say, don't waste your money on that, it just is expensive urine. But then they'll turn around and tell a pregnant woman, oh, we need you to take supplements, or, oh, you're iron deficient, you need a supplement. So, there are appropriate places for supplementation, in my opinion, and so I'm an advocate for the whole thing, and I love the fact that we're talking about it today. Thank you for all the disclaimers that we got out of the way there, y'all. What about, you're talking about believability. There's this conversation that's kind of interesting about natural and synthetic ingredients that I thought was interesting. I don't know if you, we asked Dr. Chaney about, can you really get all your vegetables and vitamins, vegetables and fruits in those little tablets that they tell you to take on TV? And he was kind of laughing at that, saying if you dehydrated an apple and took you grind it up and all that kind of stuff, it would take 28 tablets to get the apple in there. And so they're going to say they have 24 fruits and vegetables in the tab. He doesn't see how they can do it. So, of course, there's probably not the whole food in those tablets that they're telling you is in there. And he was coming from a perspective of the reason you eat an apple is because you get all of these things together. It's a synergistic product. It's beautifully designed. And that when you start teasing out, let's just take a vitamin E tablet or let's take a vitamin singularly like calcium, you may run into trouble. It's the idea of formulating and designing the supplement for its bioavailability and its actual absorption and the things that are important. And knowing that, you can look at the evidence of the clinical trials on humans, not on animals or cell cultures. And that was the great conversation that he gets into in this book, is how do you believe what people are saying? Because every supplement manufacturer will say, oh, we have proof that our things work. or, oh, we test our ingredients, or such and such, and how do you trust them, because we do know that there's things on the shelves that hurt people, that have contaminants in them, that don't have the ingredients in them that they say they have.
And one of the ways he advises us to, just be curious is when a company says, oh, we've got research to back up our product. The same kind of pills that you were just talking about, he brings up a story where someone came up to him or I don't know, it was an email he got where a woman was selling these pills and saying, well, of course this works. Look at this study. And he did. He looked at the study. He called the journal. And the journal then, he was kind of in disguise and acting like he was interested in publishing in this journal. And so the guy on the other line is like, sure, for this amount of money, we can get you published and we'll help your product get the word out there and look legit. And
is there any review process? No. You just give us the article.
Right. Versus
pay to play.
Peer-reviewed has a
process,
a long process where it's easy to get rejected if they don't think it's going to work or there's anything wrong with it. Versus, so that's totally
different. And the
different.
revision process that you can go through, like do some more experimentation and then bring the paper back to us.
Right. And then that's totally different than somebody paid
in
to
an advertising journal.
In an advertising journal.
Versus peer-reviewed.
So step one is look a little closer at that research. Where is it published? Is that a peer-reviewed journal? Is it just a white paper that their scientist came up with? Or have other respected peers looked at this and scrutinized the process with you?
Absolutely.
So what do y'all think? Do you think that's good advice?
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just trying to picture the average Joe doing that
exactly.
level.
That's what I was thinking, because when you see that thing on TV where they say, take this pill and you don't have to do anything else and you're going to lose weight.
Yeah. I mean,
that's simple.
I think the average Joe should at least question that, right? And be curious. Maybe they're not looking into it, but
they don't, because look at the sales on these products.
I know.
So I agree with you, Lucy. I think that's too much to expect the average Joe to do. So where's the responsibility for that lie? Consumer beware.
Yeah, I feel like there's a little bit of a gap in this whole supplement world. Another thing is, even if it's peer reviewed, it could, Dr. Chaney talks about you can't just look at one study. You have to look at the whole body of evidence. And online bloggers and even doctors who promote certain things will just cherry pick what they want from the research. And you can find pretty much any research article that's going to back up what you're saying. And that's what he means. You can cherry pick. Or maybe the study was only 16 subjects and it can't really provide good data on just 16 subjects. So you have to look at those kind of details.
In his book, he gives us some 7 easy ways to spot fad diets, and he talks about the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, giving us some red flags to look for. I think if you buy the book, that might be an interesting thing to review. And then he takes on some individual supplements and does that. But I kind of wanted to ask you all, why do you think the United States has such an obsession with weight loss? Because I have several women friends. My men friends don't seem to be quite as obsessed with it, but they will spend the 2 hours we're together talking about what they're eating and what they're trying to do with their bodies, and I'm not interested. Just be happy, folks. But what do you all think's going on? Why is this an issue?
Ugh.
That's a big question.
How much time do we have?
Oh, we got about 15 minutes. So sum that up in 7, please.
Right. One thing just to throw out there for anybody that hasn't heard of it, the documentary Embrace. Tim, if you can help me out with the woman's name, I cannot think of it right now, but she did this amazing documentary that just goes through the brainwashing that starts from early in our lives, advertisement, movies, commercials, TV shows, magazines, just like all of the images that we are bombarded with from the get-go.
Taryn Brumfitt.
Thank you,
Welcome.
Tim.
You're welcome.
So that that documentary just kind of, I mean, honestly made me cry, because you know it, but then when you just see it all highlighted and put out there, and then to find out that starting in, what is it, second grade, I mean, like, this is when Kristen's kids are now in this phase of this potential part of life where, like, kids are starting to become uncomfortable and like, oh, I've got a belly. And it's like, well, yeah, you don't have any meat on you, tiny human, you know, like you that's what your intestines that's supposed to poke out. It's just unbelievably horrifying. But then also we do simultaneously have an increased obesity situation that's happened in the last, 30, 50 years. Thank you to the sugar industry potentially causing us to think fat is terrible. You know, I mean, like I said, we could go on for days. So I'm going to wrap it up and let somebody else chime in, but there's lots of things going into this.
I agree. I think women have a history of kind of being severely objectified, kind of as not only are you supposed to, have the kids, raise the kids, keep the home, and now in this day and age, have a career, but you're also supposed to look good and be appealing. And I know, looking back at advertisements from like the 30s, 40s, 50s, it was really like women were like this pretty little object for their husband to come home to. And it was very easy to sell things to look pretty for someone else. And unfortunately, I think we've just kind of changed the language, but the message is still there that we have to be everything, but also be really pretty while we're doing it. And unfortunately, skinny kind of equals pretty in the media's eyes.
Well, so what we're learning about weight loss and supplements, that's only a piece of the supplement story. It seems that if I lose weight, I can do that. I can do that with any of these fads, any of the diets, any of the plans. But within 2 years, it will not make a difference. I'll be back at wherever I was. And so I think that's got to be news to somebody. It's like, yeah, it doesn't matter what you do. You can lose weight lots of different ways. Pick one and do it if you want to. But if you want to keep it off, is that really the way to do it? Will it stay off, or is it going to rebound you back? And so then you get into, some of these more dangerous supplementation, the amphetamines and stimulants. And
unfortunately, the market knows that if they promise something like that, it flies off the shelf. If they promise quick weight loss or it melts fat.
Well, I even see that with Weight Watchers. I know people have done Weight Watchers several times. They do it and then they're off and then, got to do it again. So how do we help people? Education is one, I think. Okay, that's weight loss supplements. Do you want to say anything about weight?
Well, I'll just say this will be our little add in here. Well-balanced nutrition helps you focus on habits, healthy habits that are sustainable, that can be lifelong things and improve your health. We celebrate non-scale victories all the time and help people just have that healthy relationship with food over this, instead of the obsession over the scale or what the weight, what the scale says or what weight loss they're hoping for, right? Kind of reframing that and helping them find a healthy path.
So what about people that are fatigued and don't have energy? And so the idea is that maybe we're protein deficient. And so there's a really big controversy in the protein supplementation world about soy is bad for you. And I think Dr. Chaney makes a pretty convincing argument that not really. It's probably one of the best sources for protein if you're going to supplement because of the balance of the amino acids. And then the idea of maybe adding leucine in with that helps protect the muscle. And what do you all think about protein supplementation and requirements for protein? Because he said that was a controversy in the food myth about some people don't think you need protein, other people say we're not getting enough. And particularly as we enter our later years, the elder population really may need more, he believes needs more protein than they're getting.
I love protein. I don't think a lot of people get enough of it. I know in such a meat heavy, the American diet, that's hard to believe. And some people, yes, are eating more than they need. But for the average active, especially I feel like female demographic, you're probably not eating enough. I have not encountered as many clients eating too much protein than I have as clients not.
Deficient in protein.
Yeah, Dr. Chaney says really it's only the middle-aged couch potatoes that are eating too much. So everybody else, like teenage girls, pregnant and lactating women, people over 60, athletes or active women, like all of those they could benefit from more protein.
Yeah, if you're hitting those slumps, it's a real good energizing source.
Lucy, did you have something you wanted to say? I don't know.
No, I mean, I definitely hear all the time about like, oh, I can't do that. Like, I don't want to raise my risk for breast cancer. So just to know that when it's in that food form, if you're doing soy, as a protein powder, as a protein source in your diet, that the research is showing like that's not the issue.
Yeah, he shows some really good articles about the breast cancers and the colon cancers and the resistant things. And the soy actually has some protective benefits in this. But the other idea that he talks about is people that are eating their protein in animal products are getting other things besides the protein that may not help their health, and if they're eating great quantities of it. So they're bringing in more of these, and particularly how they cook the red meat can then introduce some of these other compounds in the nitrite area that are controversial, carcinogenic. And I think it has now been, red meat is a type 2 carcinogen, class 2A carcinogen, which is frightening to think about.
Yeah,
it really is.
So I think a soy or a whey maybe, or a plant-based protein could be a good alternative to help you meet those requirements for protein, and not to eliminate red meat, but to keep it in moderation and maybe infrequent.
Yeah, I've been telling my clients that the next big food, what do they call it? The superfood movement, that it's going to be green peas, because that's actually, it's like what everything's being made out of that's meat free right now. And so many people just overlook those little green peas, but I'm like, superfood, y'all, it's got it all. It's got your complex carb, it's got your protein. I don't know if there's any fat involved, but it is a super little protein rich, fiber rich food.
Well, one of the other interesting things about protein is rice has protein in it, and a lot of times these protein supplements will use a rice base, but we know that the growing of rice, since it stands in a lot of water, has a more opportunity to absorb arsenic and some of these heavy metals in the groundwaters. And so if the products are not tested for those heavy metals, you don't know what you're getting in the finished product. So that, to me, is another thing about making sure that if you're selecting supplements, I think you may go over the criteria for selecting the supplements again in this one, but it's the idea that if you're looking for companies that are reputable, have a long history, they haven't had any product recalls, and that they are testing the raw ingredients and the manufacturing process, and at the end, you're more likely to get a clean substance that's not going to introduce some catastrophes.
Right. Stringent quality controls.
Yeah, stringent.
And that goes for supplements and food. And that can lead us into this organic myth that he had in here, that organic products are pure. And he kind of sets the record straight here. And it was interesting because it was not the direction I was expecting him to go. He says organic foods are not free of pesticides, which hopefully you know that. There's still some pesticides in organic foods.
For the label to be on there. He said the label will allow a percentage of that.
Oh, okay, right. They're simply less contaminated than conventional raised foods. And that organic doesn't necessarily mean pure in the sense that all foods, conventional or organic, can have this groundwater contamination.
And air drift.
So like if there's a factory, there was an example of like an organic tea product that this company was going to use, but then when they tested it, it was full of lead. Yikes.
Yeah,
So-
but it had been
Yikes.
grown beautifully. I mean, it was in
They
top,
did all the
yeah.
right things that they could control. But then there was like a factory that was,
Contaminating the groundwater, and it got into the tea leaves. And who would have known? But by testing, you find that out. And the testing equipment is very expensive. And the types of tests he goes over so that you know what you're looking for. But he still says it's better that, it's not a bad thing to buy organic.
right.
Yeah.
No, he recommends it. But
Well,
what are
it's
your
just so
thoughts on
expensive.
organic, Bella and Lucy? Just from working with people.
I think if it's something, that you eat all the time that we know is a higher pesticide food, like my kid is eating a lot of applesauce because he loves those little pouches. So I do make sure to buy the organic varieties because apples are one of those that they've shown to be a higher pesticide.
The Dirty Dozen.
Right, exactly. The Dirty Dozen food. But I don't buy a lot of bell peppers. So if I can find the organic version, then cool, I might pick that up. But if all I can find are the conventional, or I don't feel like spending $5 for 2 bell peppers, then I might just buy those conventional bell peppers because I'm not eating them every day or even every week. So I think it's really looking at what are the foods that you're consuming most often, and is there a way to pick that more organic option for those everyday foods?
So you're talking
I
about
eat a lot of
load.
lettuce.
Yeah, you're talking about
Yeah.
load.
That's what I'm thinking, is try to focus on your load, because if you try to go all organic, unless you're like one of those people that just has all those monies right now to spend on your food, then I'm still trying to get over the fact that I spend literally twice as much now on groceries than I did a year ago.
Wow.
And I'm not buying all organic, y'all.
Well, and Bella brought up the food desert idea and the tone deafness. When we have this conversation, we always assume people have expendable incomes.
Yeah, and we find that the more we talk about organic and the Dirty Dozen, that the people who can't afford the organic then just are afraid to buy conventional and don't
Go to the
eat as
processed
much
and go to processed.
produce altogether. Yeah, and so that's not what we want.
And then they get the sugars and they get the additives and the artificials and the synthetic stuff, and that may not be
Other
as,
chemicals too.
Yeah.
So
right.
So I just like to remind people that the benefits of eating fruits and vegetables, whether they have to be conventional, outweigh not eating them at all. And I want to invite Dr. Chaney back on because there's been a lot of controversy about this quote unquote research behind the Dirty Dozen.
Oh, yes, I am aware of that too.
And I wanted him to chime in, but
Yeah.
didn't have the time.
There is more to talk about there. And then calcium is another, and we're going to have to wrap this up, I know, because you all are busy ladies, but a lot of people struggle with calcium deficiencies or osteoporosis, or they want to avoid that, but they're not eating dairy. And so what are other sources for calcium in your diet?
There's some vegetables.
And broccoli is one, and I think he talks about you'd have to eat so much broccoli to get the amount that you need. And our bones are living organisms because the calcium's coming in and out. It's not a static organ. You're calling it in to buffer systems, and that he brings up the idea about alkaline water, which I was so happy he talked about in here. That's another conversation. But that idea that calcium is a critical mineral, and supplementation may be appropriate, but the variety of formulations of calcium, citrate or carbonate or whatever, and do you have the other materials in there that help the absorption and the incorporation of the bone? If you don't have those in your diet, you may have too high of calcium levels, and you end up with all those things that people worry about. This book, to me, both of these books have been an interesting read, and I hope you guys, when you have time, will pick up a copy and then continue the conversation with us. I'm Eleanor at 360healthforyou.com, making healthy happen, loving to have these conversations. Hope your colleagues will join us again someday.
Yes, it was really
Yes,
fun
please.
having you guys.
thank you.
Thank you.
And we are the dietitians of Well Balanced Nutrition. And where can you find us?
I wish you could see Bella.
Yeah, Bella's dancing.
I'm so excited.
I'm dancing it out.
Yes, she is.
We're at wellbalancednutrition.com, and we're also on Instagram at wellbalancednutrition
NC. Yeah.
And you have very interesting newsletters that you distribute. So if people chime in with you guys, they may have that resource to look forward to.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
And a
thanks.
free guide on there, finding your groceries a little bit more affordable. So go to our website.
Who doesn't need that right now?
Yeah.
Okay, Tim, you know where to go.
I do.
All right. Well, thanks for joining in on this conversation. I hope you enjoy some good books and have a good rest of your day.
Can't wait to see what we read next. Over and out.
The views and opinions stated in this podcast are solely those of the contributors and are not necessarily those of our distributors or hosting company. This podcast is copyrighted, and no part can be reproduced without the expressed written consent of Kristen and Eleanor.